You might remember the first time you picked up a controller or a console, only to emerge hours later having completed several levels of a video game that had well and truly hooked you. Video games evoke frustration and joy in equal measure. Sometimes they are all we think about. We might spend hours a day playing or set aside time for a bit of escapism. However you do it, there is no denying that video games are a leading form of entertainment not only here in the UK, but all around the world. Welcome to Explained, the Southampton Solent University podcast, where we attempt to unpack what's going on behind the scenes of modern life, from sport and science to music and law, and everything in between. I'm your host, Robyn O'Mahony, and today we're diving into one of the world's most popular forms of entertainment. I'm joined by Dr Nick Hampton, course leader and senior lecturer in computer games and art design at Solent University. With a background in game design and development, and as the founder of an indie studio which developed and published games for Android and iOS platforms, Nick is an authority on video games. With a PhD in the subject, Nick has spent a decade at Solent fueling the creativity of students with a passion for gaming. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Robyn. Hello. Thank you for that lovely intro. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in at least 5 years, so I appreciate it.
I found it all on the Solent website.
Well, that's where I put all my... I write that, so, you know.
You write your own bio?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so before we get into the wild world of video games and how many people are playing video games in the UK now, I want to know what titles have captured your interest over the years. So when you were growing up or as an adult, I've been playing a lot of Crash Bandicoot recently on the Switch, and that's been really fun, but also really, really frustrating. So just from the perspective of a gamer, what has it been for you?
So yeah, Crash Bandicoot, good call. I kind of started playing games in the 90s, so I was on the Mega Drive and the Master System, and I think for me it was just the interactivity. Because, you know, I used to watch television and suddenly I was able to kind of control these characters on screen, and it really triggered my imagination. And since then it's been everything from Mario and Mario Kart through to Silent Hill 2 recently. I've been playing the remake of that horror game.
Scary.
Yes, very scary. I'm really enjoying that. So yeah, there's been a whole bunch of games, including Crash and Spyro. If you haven't had a chance to play Spyro the Dragon, that's a really good one. But I like fun games. I like kind of bright, colourful games. And I also like games that have something to say and have a good story.
And do you feel, this is a bit of a side note, but do you feel quite lucky that your job revolves around something that you really love?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're privileged enough to have that opportunity, it's an amazing opportunity to have. And yeah, I'm every day I get to talk about games without people looking at me like I'm weird. I get to help students out with games and like the art and the craft behind it. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
And do you see some really exciting ideas coming through the university as well through students?
Yes, yeah. We've got some amazing graduates, we've got some amazing students at the moment, seen some amazing things that I can't do. You can take them up so far and then suddenly they get better than you, which is the point of it, really. And I'm constantly blown away by what they produce. Yeah,
amazing. It's exciting. So according to, I feel like I'm going to say this wrong, Statista, which is a platform that carries out public surveys and analyses data. 37.7 million people are playing video games in the UK. So that's quite a whopping number. And just for those that are interested, split by gender, 53% men, 47% women. So this is half of the UK playing video games, and obviously it's really growing as a form of entertainment. And according to the government, it's one of the UK's fastest growing creative industries. So I think obviously there are a lot of factors at play here, and it's really obviously difficult to, if I just say, why. It's not a simple answer, but that's where I'm going.
Okay, fair enough.
I would like to know why.
I'll try and get it in a sentence.
If you just, why do you think so many people are now playing video games?
It's fascinating, actually, the cultural shift and the perception of games, because when I was growing up, and I'm not sure about yourself, but games weren't played by many people. They were like the pursuit of the lonely nerd, which is how I grew up with them. And then I think around about in the mid-90s, Sony came out with the PlayStation, and they made games cool. They made consoles cool. They put them in nightclubs. If you went to a nightclub, you would see a Sony PlayStations. And I think suddenly a lot more people became interested then. And then we've obviously had the proliferation that's how you say that, of mobile phones and various devices which allow people to gain access to games easier. And then I think also most recently with the lockdown, and there was a huge spike over that period of time of people playing video games because they didn't have much else to do. Everyone was in lockdown, and so there was a huge spike in streaming services and video game playing. And I think a lot of people got into games then as well, even that recently, 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of reasons, yeah. But it does seem to be nowadays half the population at least are playing games. You got Twitch, you got streamers, you got YouTube. Like there's a whole culture around not even just playing games, but watching other people play games, which I still think is insane. But who am I to say? But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting actually, because obviously people earn money playing video games.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what a great job that would be. But another thing you said about lockdown, I mean, I started playing Call of Duty during lockdown, which I'd never played before. But obviously, like you said, there wasn't much to do. And my brother was playing it one day and I was like, let me have a go at this. And then I was kind of addicted because it was quite fun. And yeah, so I think obviously maybe people went to video games during lockdown perhaps for the first time and then found that it was this really fun thing that they had been missing out on and then continued to play. Do you think that's possible, that people came to it for the first time?
Yeah, I think very much. I think your experience does potentially reflect a lot of other people's experiences. Because, there was a lack of things to do. I mean, if you look at the games companies, they saw a huge spike in profits over that period of time, and there was just literally people. Animal Crossing on the Switch, I don't know if you guys know about Animal Crossing, but a huge number of players. And it was like a cute game that people could play. There's a term for it. But yeah, they're cutesy games, and it makes people feel safe. I think during COVID there was a lot of uncertainty. People didn't know what the future was about their health, and I think games was just this kind of safe space to fall into. Or if you just like shooting people in the head, such as yourself maybe with Call of Duty, that was something else you could do. Not in real life.
Just on games.
Just on games. Just to clarify that. I think that a definite uptick.
Yeah, it's funny you mention Animal Crossing actually, because when we were talking about this episode, we were talking about games like Candy Crush and Farmville, so ostensibly Facebook meta games that don't really challenge players in that kind of traditional way. And then we were talking about, are those kinds of games potentially and more of an accessible route into more serious gaming? So you've got your Facebook gamers and then you've got your Xbox and PlayStation and Switch gamers. Do you think they're different categories, or do you think there's some crossover?
I think there's a Venn diagram there where there is some crossover between those two sets of people. But I mean, my dad, if I can bring him into it, sorry, Dad, he plays, what's the game where you attack different countries and Risk. Thank you. So my dad plays a game called Risk, and I actually bought him a console specifically for this reason because he loves it. And he played it for so long, he actually broke the in-game counter that couldn't count past 999,000 hours. So God knows how long he's been playing that for. But he would not call himself a gamer, not even for a second. He likes Risk and that's it. So I think there are a lot of people out there who play Candy Crush and never go outside Candy Crush, and that's just what they do. And they wouldn't identify as being someone who's a gamer per se, but they do interact and engage with the medium on some level. But I don't think they necessarily cross over into playing Call of Duty, but there is a subset of those people where that will happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. So your dad doesn't want to be called a gamer.
No,
he's a risker.
Yeah, he won't go on any roller coasters.
But in terms of risk,
he's a risker.
He's a risker.
Yeah.
Do you think that the term gamer is losing its meaning? Do people are they still like, yeah, I'm a gamer? Or did anyone ever do that anyway?
People absolutely used to do that.
Yeah.
Identify as a gamer. It was like a badge of honor. I think because it came from a position of being outside of society to some extent. So you it was a safe space for people to go into, and you identified as a gamer, and it helped you make friends and build up a social circle around you. I think increasingly nowadays it has lost its meaning. There are still people who are kind of obsessed with labels, but I think, the art students we have, for example, a lot of them aren't huge gamers, but they love game art. So they don't necessarily identify as a gamer, but they love game art and they want to make game art. So I think it's more fluid now. Maybe it's not quite so readily identified as, I'm a gamer, I'm not a gamer.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you're saying actually about how, back in the day, let's say people were like, yeah, I'm a gamer, and that was a way of them having a community. And it is a community, isn't it? Especially with some games. And I wonder if, again, sorry to go back to COVID, but
no.
it was quite a big event.
It was.
do you think because of that period of isolation, which meant people were at home, they weren't seeing their friends, they weren't seeing their family, they found communities through games, and that was their way of being part of something? Do you think that's maybe why there are so many people doing it now? Because actually a lot of people, even since COVID ended, still feel a sense of isolation, and, you know, people aren't seeing their friends in the same way they did before, and maybe they reach for games as a comfort.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, this would be anecdotal because I personally despise talking to people on a good day, so I will avoid playing online as much as I can. This is hell for me, by the way.
Thank you for being here.
But yeah, I think for a lot of people, they did find a sense of community, especially when they were isolated or lonely. And I think that's always been something that games have actually achieved quite nicely, even back in the 80s and 90s. I think it was something for people to build up a society, a social kind of infrastructure around. And especially online, I think, you know, you can meet friends that maybe don't get to see in person, and it can be a weekly thing that you do. Or let's meet up this week. We're going to play our weekly, you know, COD or World of Warcraft, and it's just a chance to have something on in the background in many ways, just to chat and communicate. So yeah, I think games are brilliant for that, for that social element.
I think it can be quite beautiful as well, actually, because I know a couple of people who actually did go on to meet people they'd played games with in person and made these really lovely friendships with them. And
I think games are an opportunity to bond around something, and I think there's a lot of things in life that can do that, but games obviously appeal to quite a lot of few people at this time, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, which we could get into, like brain chemistry and rewards and dopamine and stuff. But actually it was quite interesting when you said addicted a moment ago. There was a little red flag on in my mind, because that was such a bad term about 15 years ago, but we've kind of moved away from that a little bit, and I think games are viewed more positively now as a social thing, or as a mental health benefit. People with autism and various illnesses play games as a coping mechanism, or as a way of helping them to deal with real world situations. So yeah, they've got loads of really awesome, cool applications, not just this negative thing that people used to think, I think, about games. Lots
of positivity. Do you think that's come from the kind of the way that games have evolved and developed? Now we're seeing amazing graphics, beautiful landscapes in these games, really quite complex narratives and, you know, narrative-driven games. And do you think that's why maybe games are getting more kudos now? Because people are like, wow, they are works of art. Not to say they haven't always been works of art, but maybe that's just being more widely acknowledged now.
I think games in general are being more accepted now as a viable medium, maybe an art form. It's certainly on par with like movies, whatever you might want to think of a movie being. So yeah, I think people are more accepting. It's interesting though, with the realistic aesthetic, that was always the pursuit of games, to emulate movies and real life. And what's interesting actually at the moment in games is that the more people are playing them, the more divergent that art style is becoming. So you've now got games that are really popular that don't have that realistic look, and they're still treated potentially as art, but there's a lot more kind of personal expression going on in games, especially with the art, especially in the indie scene, like trying to reflect the world through the art as the creator sees it. So we're getting this really nice, interesting, broad spectrum of diverse art styles going on, which I love personally. Nothing against realism. I think realism's awesome as well. But yeah, we're getting this art thing with games is becoming more prolific, I think, and more people are thinking of it in those ways.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know, you know, you don't want to mansplain.
Well, I mean, I'm trying not to. I want to. It's my natural go-to.
Of course. But yeah, within that statistic of 37.7 million playing video games, a big chunk of them are women. And when I was researching for this episode, there is a chapter in an academic journal about gender in gaming called Women Are From Farmville, Men Are From Vice City. And I thought it was really smart. I thought it was really funny, but also it made me think about the fact that actually I used to love Grand Theft Auto. But I wonder if the reason that I loved it was because I was introduced to it by my brothers. So I grew up with two brothers and a sister, and my brothers were big gamers. And I don't know if I necessarily would have been introduced to that game if I didn't live with two boys. So maybe there's obviously there's probably a lot of truth in the fact that some games are maybe geared more towards a male audience and some towards a female audience. However, there is a new Grand Theft Auto coming out next year, and the main character is a woman.
Really?
Did you not know that?
No, I'm not buying that.
Stop.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I was joking. So I don't know.
what's your take on this? Like, in terms of, some games are for women, some are for men. Do you think that's true? Or do you just think, no, actually, it's for everyone?
I like to think it's for everyone. I mean, all I can do is talk anecdotally about this stuff. I looked at the paper that you mentioned. I did read through that, and I looked at some of the stats. But anecdotally, I've always had friends, female friends who've been into games, and maybe my friendship with that. But I remember my friend when I was younger introduced me to Street Fighter. I won't say her name because she might want privacy. But anyway, she introduced me to Street Fighter, and I hadn't played Street Fighter before. So I think there is a tendency to kind of suggest that there are some games for girls and some games for boys. And maybe when people are on very extreme sides of femininity or masculinity, they might lean towards certain games, and those games are maybe designed for them. But I think, we're such a complex cornucopia of things as a human being. It's really hard to quantify exactly why people play games. But my partner loves difficult horror games. It's one of the things we bond over. I've had lots of friends who like complex games, and I've got male friends who just want simple games. So I think it is hard to really know. But I think traditionally we did perceive it very much that girls liked one type of game and boys liked another type of game, and maybe that was what was going on, because there weren't many girls playing games initially as much as there are now. So hopefully it's just opened up. Hopefully as an art form, as a medium, it's more inviting to people. What that experience is, I don't know. I can't say, but I think that there are more experiences out there that appeal to more people now, other than just what used to be out there. But then you yourself, like COD, which maybe 15 years ago was traditionally thought as a boys-driven style game.
Well, I still feel like it is, because even if during lockdown, when I said to some friends, I've discovered Call of Duty online mode, and it's changed my life. People were like, really? Like, that's weird. And I'm like, is it?
Is it?
So I don't think people, if a guy came along and said, I'm playing Call of Duty, someone would be like, that's weird. But I think sometimes when a woman says it, it's still surprising. And it's still a bit like, okay, because, I wouldn't have traditionally thought that, as a woman, you'd be into that. No. So I do think there's still boxes, isn't there, in which we should sit and exist in. And I think that probably does exist to entertainment, because there's certain types of entertainment that you should enjoy more, maybe, if you're, a certain... Yeah. But I don't think that's true, is it? And I think one of the really wonderful things about games is that there's something for everyone out there. And I think, you don't have to stick to that kind of formulaic, I'm a woman, so I'm going to play Farmville.
Well, the bad old days, it used to be like pink Barbie games. Not there's anything wrong with a pink Barbie game. I love a pink Barbie game personally, but that was purely designed for females to bring them into gaming, without any thought that a male might enjoy it or that a female would enjoy something that isn't Barbie. So I think we're a lot more sophisticated now. Can I ask you a question though?
Yeah.
Can I flip? So when you play COD, so I've had a lot of female friends who play games like that say that they have to either mute their mic or put a filter on, because as soon as someone finds out, there's a lot of toxicity out there. Do you find there's any kickback when you revealed yourself to be a woman?
I don't engage in that way. Okay. So mic's not on, like team chat's turned off, so can't hear what anyone else in the game is saying. I wouldn't speak on the game either. So, and I play on my brother's account.
All right.
So it's his name.
But that's got nothing to do with fear of there being any...
No, because I think if there was, I'd have something to say about it.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'm also aware that, yes, actually, we did speak about this when we were talking about this episode, and because Martin, our faceless producer, said that games like Dark Souls, for example, they're these really fiendishly difficult games, and, maybe they're difficult because, those sort of ardent male gamers want a challenge. Do you think there's truth in that? Do you think male gamers are kind of like, that's for me and that's not for her?
I don't want to disagree with Martin, your faceless producer, because he's standing very close to me, and I might get some repercussions from that. But I don't know. Anecdotally, on a one-to-one human basis, I think it just appeals to you if it appeals to you. And there might be certain things, motifs or visuals or aesthetics or kind of storyline elements that are more appealing to a masculine or feminine sensibility. Yes, that definitely happens. But I think increasingly nowadays we don't go in when we're developing the games go, we need to target just men or just girls. I think there's because it is so prominent now. Yeah. I think we're far more open to new experiences. I hope.
Yeah. We're progressive.
We're getting more progressive.
Quickly on the subject, though, of games for men and women.
Okay. Okay.
The PlayStation 1 is 30.
It is?
It's my age.
Oh, is it?
And I feel, when I was watching on the news, they did this little piece about it. The game they showed with it was Tomb Raider.
Okay.
And I love Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
I always have. And I remember having PlayStation 1. I remember my brothers being with me and we were playing. We were like fighting the dinosaur.
Yep.
It was so fun.
Yep.
And I've always loved that game. But she was sexualized.
Yeah.
But she also appealed to women because she was so cool.
Yep.
So, there's a bit of both there.
There is a bit of both. I agree. I mean, my partner loves Tomb Raider. That was the first game she got into. She obsessed with Tomb Raider. And I think Lara was the first strong female representation. She was sexualized, but she kicked ass and she was on adventures and she did stuff. And there were very, very few representations of women at the time. Mm. She was a huge influence, especially on girls, actually seeing female representation in a game.
Yeah.
Which is fabulous. Yeah.
I just want to kind of get back to Dark Souls a little bit. So, actually I kind of tried to associate it maybe with, games for men, games for women. But is there actually something in that people just get pleasure from finding things really, really difficult in video games?
Do you? Like when you're playing COD?
Well, no, but when I'm playing Crash Bandicoot,
right.
My goodness, anyone that has played that game knows it's really hard.
It is. It's
really, really difficult. But you can't stop.
No.
Because you just need to get it. You need to do it. Why do we love that so much?
We like to overcome challenges. And I think games give you a structured way of overcoming a challenge with visual and auditory rewards. And I think that releases dopamine in the system. And I think we get a kick out of it, which can veer onto addiction if you're not careful. But yeah, I think there is definitely that thrill. In terms of really hard games, I think that's just, masochistic. I just think people enjoy overcoming a challenge.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what that challenge is.
In a safe environment.
In a safe environment where you're not getting hurt, no one else is getting hurt.
Yeah.
But you get to overcome something, get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Awesome. Okay, so just quickly as we wrap up.
Okay.
Future of games. Big
Oh,
question.
gosh.
Where games are at the moment. We've seen a lot of VR. We've seen a lot of remastering going on.
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, Half-Life 2. Is there a taste for nostalgia right now in gaming, do you think?
I think a lot of people who grew up playing games are now in their 30s and 40s, and there is a sense of nostalgia trying to recapture their youth, because that's quite a big percentage of the market audience. So I think there's that chasing down like the feeling you used to get when you were a kid. And also, it has to be said, games are so expensive to make nowadays. They cost billions of dollars, and I think it's playing it safe. The developers are playing it safe by remaking a game that's already got a lot of the work done. So that's something that's been looked at in the industry at the moment about the costs and the overheads of actually developing these games. And there's actually a lot more smaller studios, indie studios forming that can make smaller games cheaper, that can explore more interesting topics, that don't have that risk over them because they've cost £10 billion and you've got 40 million employees. It's like 3 people and a small budget. So that's quite an interesting way that the future of games is going, that it's not sustainable. These big AAA budget things just aren't sustainable. So we're having to look at how we go forward and what kind of games we make and the kind of experiences we make for people. So it's all changing. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's always in flux.
And where do you think, where's it going? Where are we going? Are we going to see more and more remastering? Are we going to see crazier things in VR? Or is VR going to die, do you think, a little bit?
VR's got its place. I think VR is where it is. It's not going to be the second coming, but it's certainly got its place, especially in training and medicine and mental health. People that get a lot of help from VR. I think gaming, I don't know where it's going. It could either all get sucked into a black void of business nonsense and die like it did in the 80s, unfortunately, or it could expand like a phoenix. Phoenixes don't expand. Sorry, it could come from the ashes like a phoenix and become this incredible, magical, wonderful thing that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah.
I wait with bated breath.
I hope it's the latter.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been so cool.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
And thank you very much. And thank you for a really nice conversation. Appreciate it.
Thanks to Nick for joining us on this episode of Explained, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. Like what you heard today? Let us know. You can find us online at solent.ac.uk, as well as on all your favourite social media platforms. Join us next time when we'll be discussing the changing face of journalism and diving into the complex world of journalistic integrity. Thank you and see you soon.